Hi, AJ Heitman here. I'm the editor-in-chief of GEMS, and I'm here at FDIC with a distinguished panel of international guests, and our panel discussion today is really going to be on some international EMS and kind of maybe how it relates a little bit to the United States, but there's a lot that's been going on, and I'll let my panelists each introduce themselves.
Thanks, AJ. I'm Bruce Farr. I'm the retired chief of Toronto Emergency Medical Services in the great city of Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
And how many years were you with Toronto?
40.
40? Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was great.
Hi everybody, John Ellis, Managing Director of Furno UK. I've been with Furno for 30 years and I run the UK operation.
And AJ, I'm Justin. Justin Wand, I'm from South East Coast Ambulance Service. I'm the head of fleet operations and technical support there.
And how many years?
Well, mere insignificance to Bruce, 22 years.
So there's quite a few old goats here, and
yeah.
We've seen a lot. So what's changing in Europe, in the UK, and Canada with respect to the delivery of EMS?
I think the technology is obviously driving a lot of clinical innovation and change, and I think that in turn is driving a level of expectation from the patient. You know, they're much more informed now about how they should be treated or how they perceive they should be treated. So you know, that's a real change in the transformation of a service that was set up and has operated in a certain way for many years. We've got to recognise that actually the things are changing, the opportunities are coming along, and the whole expectation around how we deliver care is also in the forefront, not just of the people delivering the care, but the patients on the receiving end.
Do you think that the providers are more reliant today on technology than their basic assessment skills?
I think
that's a two-sided question,
it
really.
Is, yeah. I think if you're able to focus on nursing the patient, not the machine, you know, that's always been the mantra, right? But as things improve, undoubtedly there are going to be, you know, this technology that really adds to your arsenal, but could be a distraction if you don't get the basics right.
And I think you see that a lot with the newer paramedics that are coming on board. They're really aware of the technology compared to, say, 20 years ago in Toronto when we were introducing a new CAD system. We had to teach everybody how to type and what the computer was all about before we could turn it on.
And everything is getting more miniaturized. I'm really happy about that. I was in a city the other day that had taken the big tower for all their computers and things, and now there's a dash mounted, almost looks like the Tesla screen, where they can operate their sirens and everything from there, and I think that that's just a lot more efficient.
Well, that whole system integration, you know, really does provide us with a huge amount of opportunity. In the UK, we've got, you know, smaller vehicles traditionally than you guys operate in the States and in Canada, and you know, real estate on the dashboard is a real challenge for us because you're encroaching into their ergonomic space, but you're also encroaching into some of the safety features that the OEMs put into the vehicle. So the more integration that we can get, and the more that you can get into that kind of a system where, you know, you've got integrated touch panels that trigger multiple options within the vehicle, that's got to be a good thing.
So we're discussing how things have changed over time, and certainly in Toronto you've seen ambulance design change and the interior of the vehicle change. How do you reflect on that? What do you think the change is a result of?
I think the changes are a result of a number of things. First of all, you know, these newer ambulances, when unfortunately they get into an accident, you see a lot less damage, you see a lot less injuries. So it kind of makes you feel good if you're the leader of the service, saying we are going in the right direction. Certainly in Canada a number of years ago, when we organized the leadership across the country under the Paramedic Chiefs of Canada, we started to work more closely with, you know, the industry leaders on the side of the manufacturing, such as Furno and some of the vehicle manufacturers. And for me, AJ, when you see these vehicles today, you just say to yourself, wow, they're really listening, because it really is moving in the right direction.
And one of the things I've noticed, and then being in the UK and being in Germany and a few other places, is that somebody made the comment to me, we design our ambulance around what the patient needs are.
Absolutely.
And in the past, I think we took a truck and it had cabinets, and then we tried to fit everything where we thought we could fit it.
Yeah.
And I can remember years ago that people would roll up towels and other things just to fill cabinets,
Yes.
and all of a sudden people would complain that there's no more room inside to take care of the patient.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I go to Canada and to Germany and to the UK, and you have smaller vehicles, a lot of Sprinter type vehicles,
yeah.
and nobody seems to complain.
So I completely agree. I mean, our operation and in CCAM we've got a fleet of 800 vehicles. Of that, 600 vehicles will be on a Mercedes chassis. We've got really good network support, so that makes it easier for us. But the step change in the UK was back in about 1999-2000 with the introduction of new legislation, and it was really around crashworthiness and for the safety and protection of the patient and the staff. So yeah, that was the SEN regulations as it's referred to in Europe. And what that saw was a step change in vehicle design and a much more robust build that could stand up to the rigours of the job. And for a few years we turned ourselves inside out, making sure we could meet the standard, and we kind of swung too far in one direction along the spectrum. And it was towards the OEM and towards the converter, and they kind of got to a point where they said, you can have anything you like, but it looks like that. And what we've done over the last decade or so is just reflect that actually it's all about the patient and the staff working in the back of the vehicle. And if you put the patient in the heart of the vehicle design with the clinical practice and the protocols that you need to fulfill, then you're going some way to really build an environment that's fit for purpose, that improves staff morale and their efficiency and effectiveness. And if you've got an effective and productive workforce, then obviously your patient experience has got to be better, and so's their clinical outcome, surely. And
it's interesting when we talk about workforce, I notice in Canada and a lot of other places, there's a lot more emphasis on the crew comfort. The cab of the Mercedes Sprinters gives you a lot more room when you're in between jobs, and there's a lot more room to put your protective gear in your helmet. And in the States, probably because we had what I call stale KKK standards, you just got the cab of the ambulance and you didn't have a lot of crew comfort. So I think a happy workforce is a better workforce.
Absolutely.
And you have to design them that way because the crews aren't seeing their bases, right? There's a
true.
lot of models, particularly in Canada, service delivery models, where they book on at a larger center.
Yep.
And they leave that center and they're posted all day long. So they're doing calls. They never get back to their base.
Yeah.
They don't get much opportunity to stretch unless they're standing in the hallway waiting for the patient to be offloaded in the hospital. Otherwise, they're living pretty much in the vehicle.
And when you talk about having 800 ambulances, certainly the economies of scale are better if you have an ambulance that's designed that you can easily restock.
Absolutely. So one of the realisations that we were talking to Mike McCourt about, in relation to this vehicle here, is that the processing time at the end of shift, washing, stocking, refilling, dramatically improved. And in terms of scalability across my system, if we can shave off 10 minutes on every rotation, that looks like £1.2 million, so what's $1.7 million, something like that, in terms of efficiency and improved availability of the vehicle being able to go out and do the job it was employed to do, rather than sitting in the garage, being processed.
Plus, I think that, we did an article in GEMS that talked about restocking, and what people forget about is when you have a busy system, every minute that you waste restocking a vehicle is a minute you can't have that vehicle responding on a call.
Absolutely.
And at least in our model, where you're reimbursed for your service, that costs you money, and it costs you the availability of units as well.
And actually, if you want your clinical staff and your paramedics to be plying their trade, going out to patients, do you want them washing floors? Do you want them, refilling cupboards? In our system, that's not what we want to do. So pretty much as you alluded to, Bruce, we run hot pretty much all the time. We're the only high-performing EMS ambulance service in the UK, and it's a step change to get away from the culture of the paramedic washing and restocking the vehicle, but maximising the opportunity for those guys to go out and ply their trade, which is what they're good at.
So how do you keep the attendants and the paramedics and the emergency personnel in their seats? How do you keep them from roaming around the back of the ambulance? Because that's been a problem in the U.S.
Well, you know what? I think it was a problem in the industry worldwide, right? People were standing up. People were, even though they were standing up, they were tethered somewhere, and everybody thought that was safe. And it turns out, whoa, we shouldn't be doing that. I think medics get it today that the design and the hard work that many people and agencies are putting into the design and delivery of a vehicle like this is all about them, all right? So it's about them not only in terms of we now don't ask them to stand up in the back, and in some services around the city of Toronto, they have very strict policy that if the medic has to stand in the back to do patient care, they can't run hot. They simply do not run intersections because the time difference and the risk is, you know, the risk outweighs that, so that's not worth it. And we've had some terrible situations in the past that we're all familiar, you know, where medics are standing up in the back and there's a simple little bump, they hit their head, and, you know, it's really unfortunate.
And what's been the thinking? I know going to Retmobile, I see a lot of people moving toward mechanical CPR devices. Have you seen that throughout the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've trialled a number of mechanical devices, really to compare and contrast. So we've tried Lucas One and Autopulse, and they really did have a profound effect on cardiac arrest survival. We're now using Lucas 2. We're deploying it not across every vehicle, but certainly in a manner that it gets to the patient in a prompt way. And we're looking to invest much more in that technology and make sure that we don't get into a postcode lottery around patients that do or don't get it because of the proximity of the machine. So yeah, we're absolutely.
And it used to be that, you know, at least the wave in the U.S. was if you can't resuscitate them in 25 minutes, you call the code. We don't do CPR in a moving ambulance, and I think mechanical CPR has been a game changer because I know from my position at GEMS, almost on a weekly basis, I'm hearing about a patient that was on mechanical CPR for an hour and taken to the cath lab and survived. So I don't think we've looked at it from that perspective before. It used to be an electrical problem with the heart, and now it's a clot problem. And we can clear clots, but we have to still do CPR en route to the hospital until we get them into the cath lab.
Yeah. And in the UK, we're also focusing, AJ, a lot more on lab in a bag kind of technology, because as we've kind of already alluded to, in the UK, we get paid on hospital avoidance, not taking the patient to the ER. It's around defining and facilitating the route and the pathway for the patient to get the best treatment, not for us just to collect the cash. So we have a tier of staff who will do a lot of community-based paramedicine, really focusing on urgent and primary care. As I said, dealing with chronic exacerbations of chronic illnesses and really trying to avoid those patients becoming so ill that they have to go to hospital. So let's manage those in the community, let's maintain their independence, and let's keep them at home, which is where they want to be.
And we've seen a major change in back injuries and other things just by the better devices and stretchers and tracked vehicles, and so address that a little bit about the cost of losing an employee from a back injury.
Well, yeah, that's a very important point when you're the chief of the service and you're accountable to a council for $175 million that they're giving you to run the service, and they start to see the numbers of people that are sitting at home that can't work increase, right? About 3 years before I retired, I asked City Council for $600,000, and I bought slider boards and the stair chairs, the improved stair chairs that were made by Furno. And I promised them that we'd see a return in that investment. And after 2.5 years, it paid that $600,000 in
Really,
savings.
that's incredible.
And that was with a staff of about 1,200 paramedics.
We know in the UK market that since lift assist stretchers were introduced back in year 2000, that injuries have reduced. Obviously, for an end user like CCAM, and all the other trusts, their insurance premiums must have either maintained or slightly reduced because of the technology. And with the advanced technology that's coming out today with the INX and all the other products, it can only take it that step further. If you go back to 1999, the retirement age for a paramedic, the average was 56 years of age. And that was a big cost to the NHS, because to replace a paramedic with a new recruit, it used to cost £26,000 for the initial training. So that was a big cost burden for the ambulance trusts. So maybe you can add something to that.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, John. So, in the same way that I see the current IPTS program being a step change, what we saw back in 1999 with lift assist cots, improved legislation around vehicles, it forced us in the UK to really look at the kind of health and safety legislation and how we could minimise that kind of stuff. So lots of manual handling equipment, Bruce, smaller items like transfer boards and slide sheets. We introduced lifting cushions across our fleet, again, because actually if you can deal with those kind of routine lifts in a safe way, not only are you protecting your staff, but you're also avoiding some of those taboo lifts that will affect your patient and maybe increase their rehabilitation time for significantly. In the UK, we put a tail lift on the back of all of our ambulances, and of course this is what's really exciting about the current programme and the 2020 vision, that with the INX we think we're going to be able to take the tail lift off the back of the ambulance, and that's going to save us 250, maybe 300 kilograms of weight for every mile that we do, whether they're on task, whether they're going out on standby, whether they're taking a patient. Now in my system, we've got 17 million miles that we cover operationally. Wow. Fuel prices in the UK are astronomical compared to what you guys pay. And every bit of weight we can shave off is savings. So we spend currently $9 million a year on fuel. And if I can get, an extra mile per gallon, or maybe save a couple of cents per mile, that's going to be really important to us.
Our paramedics in Canada used to always say to us, how come we can't have the tail lifts like they have in the UK, right? But we couldn't get a manufacturer to build them with the kinds of winters that we had here, so that was kind of out of the question. But what I like about the new stretcher and this new integrated vehicle for younger people coming in, we mentioned before about they seem to better understand, they get it because they've all got iPhones and computers and everything else. I think they have an expectation now when they look at a vehicle like that everything is slick, it's very modern, it's fully integrated. I find that the newer paramedics don't question the usability of systems like AceTech. When you sit down and you talk to them about, gee, AJ, we're monitoring you, but we really just want to get you home tonight with your family.
That's right.
They start to get that, right? Some of the senior paramedics, they kind of look at you, go, you just want to know if we're at the coffee shop.
Big brother.
Right, that whole thing. But for me, it really, you can see it turning when you start talking about safety. We don't want you driving at 150 kilometers an hour to get to the patient, because there's no really sound research out there that says 150 versus 100, makes a difference in patient outcomes.
Absolutely.
And so the message, especially when you're dealing with young people who are fresh out of college or university or wherever, they've only ever driven the family car, right? They're excited with the job. When we all started, we're excited to hear the siren and we just want to drive fast. But we got to push back on that. We got to make it about them and about getting them home at night.
And when we talk about the IPTS, for our viewers, it's an integrated system that's almost, I call it the Lego ambulance. It's the safest Lego ambulance you'll ever see, that you can actually configure the sidewall, and in Germany and other places, you can configure the sidewall exactly the way you want your vehicle to be laid out. When I looked at this vehicle yesterday and talked to several of the seasoned paramedics that were looking at it, they were saying, it's about time. Yeah. Its time has come, it makes a lot more sense. Rather than having to have a whole bunch of cabinets you had to just be forced to work around, you can have your suction unit where you want it. You can have your mechanical CPR device inside, outside, wherever you want to do it. and it's just totally interchangeable.
One of the challenges that you have today is, on new vehicle design, you kind of held back on innovation to some extent, because if, say, a medical device manufacturer comes out with a new product, say LifePak 15, and you want to take advantage of that technology, you have to send your vehicle back to the vehicle builder to get it modified to fit the new bracket. The beauty of the new system, the Intrax system, is you can just plug and play, and you've got no restrictions then to take new products and the latest and greatest technology in the market. So, from an operational point of view,
massive benefit.
Big change.
Especially when you've got, as we've got, 600 vans that we would have to retrofit because we wanted to keep, in step with the best technology and the new monitoring systems and what have you.
It could be as simple as a new bracket.
Yes.
It's exactly as
simple
simple as
it
that.
is.
Yeah.
But as simple as a new bracket on an existing vehicle build could cost £1,000, $1,500 just to get it modified for the new device. With this system, it's just plug and play, a little interface plate, and away you go.
And let's not forget the downtime that it takes and the logistics to actually manage a program of retrofit to enable that kind of thing to happen.
And what's interesting is when I talked to them yesterday about this proof of concept vehicle, I said, well, how much did it cost you? And the whole freight, everything that's here is about $110,000, and that's very economical for a vehicle, particularly since it's on a Sprinter chassis, which costs a little bit more than a regular chassis.
Yeah, and I was just going to say,
Go ahead.
It's the first time in Ferno's history where we've got a product there that will truly sell globally. Because in the US you drive on the different side of the road to what we do in the UK and other areas around the world. So because it's plug and play, you can configure it on the left hand side, the right hand side. If you're a left-handed person or a right-handed person, you just configure it for the mission. So that has many advantages in for the end user as well.
And we all cover special events, and I can remember as an operations director sending a standard vehicle, and loading all this extra stuff inside and all these extra kits and tents and whatever it happens to be. And with this interchangeable system, I could add extra kits along the wall and send it out to be a special event vehicle in true sense.
Yeah. And all of that stuff, whilst being moved in transit, is safe. It's reliably stored. You're not going to have stuff rolling around the floor whilst it gets from the station to the event, so all of that kind of opportunity, you can then just use it almost like a staging post in the first instance, can't you?
I've just got a question for Justin, really, from an end user point of view, is with the IPTS, the Intrax systems there, what advantages has that got for the trust in terms of the asset, at the nearing its end of life, etc., being able to use it for different purposes?
Well, I guess one of the things that we're really excited about, John, is the opportunity to have a vehicle that we put into frontline EMS work, to work it really hard, but then recognise that maybe after 4 years we have a different accounting system to you guys in the States. So we depreciate our vehicles over 7 years, and by that time they've probably done 450,000 miles, something like that. So how do we recognise the fact that actually we want the leaner, most effective vehicles operating on the front line, but then almost put it out to pasture in a systematic way that says from years 1 to 3 it's going to be doing frontline work. From years 3 to 5 we'll use it as a BLS transport vehicle predominantly, and then years 5 to 7 actually we can take all of the stuff out, still use the Intrax, put some seats on, and then make it a non-emergency transport vehicle. We call that service patient transport, and that's really about inter-facility transports, making sure that you can get the elderly and the infirm into social care and those kind of things. And that's a big part of our business. That's about £21 million worth of revenue that we see from those kind of contracts. And it's an important part of our business, and what we really find is that supports our A&E delivery, our emergency delivery, because if we're discharging from the back door of the hospital, then we can put more in the front door of the hospital, and we can self-perpetuate that flow through the hospital, and you don't end up with too much bed blocking in the ER. So I think that's kind of one of the opportunities that we don't know if it's going to work, but we'd like to explore. Let's get it right on the emergency vehicles in the first place, though, John.
Well, what I like is you can almost semi-retire a vehicle and have it configured for mass care response. You could have 4 stretcher mounts in it, sitting at a storage facility. You could also take the small compact seats that are part of the system and use it as a crew transport if you have a major incident or a special event. You could take 6, 7 crew members safely in their seat to the incident and have it as a kind of a shuttle vehicle, or evacuating a nursing facility or some other facility where you don't have to have 5, 6 stretchers, but you want to put 8 walking wounded sitting in an ambulance safely, take them to hospital.
I think one of the other advantages as well is that, you know, you can take everything out of the ambulance and you can just clean it down. You know, in the UK we're really pay close attention to infection control.
Absolutely.
And being able to take everything out of that vehicle, wash it down in an efficient manner, restock it, get it back out on the road, is obviously going to save time and cost and be more efficient within the system.
So yeah, currently in the UK there's a really big noise about healthcare acquired infections, and we're required to do obviously shift by shift cleaning and patient by patient cleaning, but we're also required to do a deep clean process, which we do on a 6-weekly basis. We do swab testing to ensure that the microbial load is within the right tolerances and all of that kind of stuff. But for us to do that on a standard ambulance every 6 weeks, you know, it's 8 hours worth of downtime. So again, if we can shave off, you know, 10 minutes of the processing time between shifts, or maybe a faster turnaround through deep cleaning regimes, you know, there's millions of pounds worth of efficiencies there and opportunity that we can capitalise on. So, you know, that's a really important opportunity, John.
And I want to say I've been privileged to watch the process develop with Furno 2020, and I think that in our industry, for decades, people will look back at this and see what a game changer it's all been, and not just because the new stretcher design or the new interior design, but the fact that it started out talking to the ambulance manufacturers, talking to the ambulance providers, talking to the actual people that are doing the care in the street. What do you want? What do you need? Where would you like to place all of this different equipment? And to see this whole thing have a birth is really exciting for me. I know that I hadn't seen the proof of concept vehicle till I came here to Indianapolis, and I had seen many other slide programs and presentations, but to actually see and feel the kits and the way the pouches come out with the magnets that hold them in place, you know, I was wondering, well, how do you clean this stuff, and will it be able to be truly interchangeable? And it was kind of an epiphany to come here and look at the vehicle and say, oh my God, it's here, you know?
It all started with the voice of the customer, though. Throughout the world, we've been engaged with customers such as CCAM. I know that we've done a lot of extensive research in the US market, Canada, Australia, and other markets, and it's capturing all that data and then kind of ranking it into what's most important, what's achievable in the short term, medium term, and long term. And that's been a big driving force in terms of the current designs that are coming from Furno today. So it will only move the industry forward, and it'll continue to improve emergency care for patients, and obviously the operator will benefit from it as well.
And let's hope that's way beyond 2020, eh, John?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And you know, I'm one who studies FedEx and UPS and sees how efficient they are and how electronic they are, and really what we've seen here with the 2020 vision is the evolution of EMS almost to the FedEx model or the UPS model, where the vehicle is designed for efficiency, maximum service, you know, design, interior lighting, comfort for the driver. They're on the road all the time. They're controlled by electronics. They know where they're going. They know where all their equipment and their packages are. And so, you know, when people say to me, even things about Acetec, I mean, where's it been? Because I can track my package when I send it to somebody in the UK,
absolutely.
And I know everywhere that it is. And then I could leave a scene, leaving a $30,000 defibrillator behind. And now with Acetec and other electronics, it's telling me, excuse me, you just left your 30,000 piece of equipment behind.
I think the paramedics like the idea of Acetec in ways that we never thought they would. paramedics that use the anti-idling system, so that, you know, we get some pretty cold weather in Canada. And when they can walk away from their vehicle, lock it up, and it looks after itself by shutting down, starting up, maintaining proper temperature for their patient. But also it's what's yet to come. You know, when you look at this whole new safety concept vehicle, the idea of walking up to the back of the vehicle and you're carrying your patient, you're pushing the stretcher, you got all kinds of equipment and the door's open.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool to the paramedics today, right? It's cool to think that, you know, if my partner's about to leave the scene and puts the vehicle in drive and I'm not belted, and he or she gets a message, right, that Bruce isn't belted. Whoa, hey, we're not going anywhere until my partner's belted, and that's that whole safety concept.
I think the other thing that that kind of technology unlocks, you know, and there's just so many opportunities that, you know, we'll be limited by our own imagination. And you kind of touched on it really, AJ, with you know, the FedEx parcel, you can track it. Well, you know, actually, why don't we recognise that relatives might not be following the ambulance, they might be in a different state. Why can't they track where their relative is? You know, why can't they know when they're safely deposited off at the hospital? You know, why can't we give them the, you know, the EMS version of the parcel tracking system? You know, and whilst that might sound a bit puerile, you know, it's all about patient satisfaction, and it's all about reassurance, isn't it?
And electronic inventory. I mean, I'm all about, I want my crews to come on duty, do what they love to do, take care of patients, and do it quickly. Yeah. And to be able to just look inside a vehicle and find out what piece of equipment may or may not be there, it's just it's a no-brainer. This is like, for me, it's like a space shuttle adventure. If you see the way they are in the space station, in the International Space Station, everything has its place. If you need something, you pull it. If you don't need it, it's out of the way. And this is just a concept that there's no wasted space.
Absolutely.
It's just a comment that I took from Justin yesterday. He says it's too good to be true. Yeah. You know?
Do you have a no-speed policy, Justin?
No. We have a 20 mile an hour overspeed opportunity. If that's if you then end up having a problem, you know, a collision or an incident, that is really stringently looked at. But Bruce, that's changing now to be a 20% overspeed allowance, if you like.
So the company I'm working for now, Orange, based in Toronto, but we cover air and land services for Ontario. We just purchased 6 new land ambulances, and they have the full suite of Ace Tech products. And so we introduced a no-speed policy, and we're a critical care service. So our paramedics are used to speed. And then, you know, yourself on the freeways back home, same in our freeways. You know, if the posted speed is 100, everybody's driving at 120, 130. And so it doesn't make sense to paramedics when you say you can't go over 100. But we just set our posted speed, or our no-speed policy at 130. And so the paramedics are complying with that. They get that, right? And we don't want them doing any more than that, because it just doesn't, you know, doesn't make any sense. And
so one of the things I'd like to come back at you with, Bruce, is that we've been fitting the Ace Tech control systems on our vehicle fleet now since 2008, something like that. I think the guys were telling us that we've got, you know, 22,000 components installed and operational on our vehicles. We haven't got all of the driver safety system fully up and running yet. But what we have done as part and parcel of an add-on is that we've fitted a speed restrictor to our vehicles. So we spoke about the fact that we're doing 17 million miles a year. Not all of that is on running a call. So we've imposed a speed limit on the vehicle, and that's currently returning us something like 13.2% savings in fuel efficiency. And again, you know, in our system, that's 800,000 pounds a year. So just for asking the guys to stick within the speed limit and not overspeed when they're not on an emergent job.
And you know the way I really view all of this, if we look back 5-10 years ago, and if you would have told me that Siri would be directing me all the way to a site that I've never been to before, or reminding me about a meeting, or reminding me that I'm late for a meeting, we can't live without our iPhones today and with our Androids. And so I really think that this whole concept, it's really a revolution that's happened, and particularly people who live by their cell phones are going to realize that the ambulance is really going to be redesigned the same way. It's going to tell me what I'm doing right, tell me what I'm doing wrong, tell me what I should be doing. There's going to be reminders telling me, hey, don't forget to check a second set of vital signs.
Yep.
And we're busy. You know, you're in the back of an ambulance. And so I think the whole efficiency of this whole proof of concept vehicle, I got to go beyond proof of concept. I mean, I think that the proof of concept is here. All people are going to do is just keep expanding on this particular concept. It's attractive, it's efficient, it's just a no-brainer. I know that I initially thought it was just going to be the pouches on the wall and storage and stuff, but to realize that you could take it out at a special event, at an emergency scene, if you have a pediatric call, I can now take all my pediatric stuff with me and not have to have a kit open on the floor where I'm rummaging through. It's all right there and really efficient. I think it's a revolution.
But wouldn't it be really cool if we could kind of wipe out accidents?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool if, you know, in the city of Toronto, we would do 250,000 responses each year. And I was really proud as the chief to say we'd only have 2 or 3 really bad intersection accidents. You'd have some backup ones and dints here and dints there, but really bad accidents, 2 or 3 a year out of all those responses. I was pretty proud of that, but wouldn't it be nice, because even one where you have paramedics injured or patients injured, right, that's not good.
No.
So, you know, what is the future in that regard when you start thinking about, will there be cameras? The bus industry is using front and rear mounted cameras.
It's a whole paradigm shift.
Right.
I walk around this exhibit hall and there are at least 5 different ambulance manufacturers that have 360-degree cameras.
Yeah.
So when you're driving, the driver can look down and see who's on his right, who's on his left, who's behind you. And I really think it's you know, as we keep saying, it's a game changer, but the reality is it's making a safer environment. It's you know, high visibility.
Yeah.
It's convertibility. And I really got to applaud Ferno and all of you guys, because I know you've all been involved in some of the proof of concept sides of it, and you're part of this whole revolution. So thank you very much for being with us today. I hope that our viewers have enjoyed what they have heard, and I think what you're going to see is just the tip of the iceberg. Really, we're really on the part of a revolution.
It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. Thank you.